Well, since third time's the charm, why don't we go on to another archetype analysis? And I made one for tomorrow as well, prepared it at least. And this archetype is actually another Zexal archetype and miles better than the previous two I reviewed, or certainly better than the last one. They're Butterspies used by the Zexal character known as Droid, and unlike Gaucher, her sidekick, she didn't trade them off for something better. She stuck with them until the end of time. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, that's paying homage to your favorite archetypes, I guess. Anyway, let's start off with our first monster, that being the Blue Mountain Butterspy. It's a warrior with 0 attack and cannot be normal summoned or set. And when you normal summon a warrior type monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. This card cannot be used as a synchro material monster. Yeah, this is obviously a trio staple in the deck, and basically any warrior deck that focuses on rank 4 spamming, because this thing is extremely splashable. I mean, it works really well in conjunction with some stuff like Goblinburg, Kage Tokage, which could potentially lead you to a 5 monster board on your first turn. And the best part about this effect that this isn't a once per turn effect, which is good. That this is how you make good swarming effects. Don't make them once per turn. Alright, now for their next monster, that being MORPHO Butterspy. Once per turn, when the battle position of a monster, an opponent's monster is changed except during the damage step, you can target one of those monsters. It loses 1000 attack and defense. Now this is actually where we start to see the gimmick of Butterspies, except a rank 4 XC spamming, that being somewhat gimmicky stat reductions of your opponent's monster and switching their battle positions. I mean, it could have been worse. This is arguably their worst main deck monster, and yeah, their next monster is Swallowtail Butterspy with the highest main deck stats, and when another monster you control inflicts the battle damage to your opponent, target one face-up monster your opponent controls that loses attack equal to the battle damage inflicted. So potentially you could swipe a major chunk of your opponent's attack points from one of their monsters with this effect. That's a resounding if, because this archetype is still really good for XC spamming other than its own gimmick. Yeah, there's pretty much nothing else to say about this, except you run this more frequently than the MORPHO Butterspy. And our last monster is Moonlit Papillon, and unlike the other monsters, it's a light monster, and when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon one level 4 or lower Butterspy monster from your deck. I mean, this is also a really good 3-off staple because it searches your other monsters out. And it's really good for what it does, and yeah, always run 3 of these. Good card. And finally getting to their XC's lineup, first up we have PHOTON PAPILLOPERATIve. And yeah, this is another one of those monsters that falls under the 2 archetypes, the other being Photon, just like Photon Bouncer. It's a light monster, considering the majority of the main deck lineup, requires 2 level 4 monsters, 2100 attack, and once per turn you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card and target 1 defense position monster on the field, change it to face-up attack position, and if you do, it loses 600 attack. Swiping off attack values, and it first needs to be a defense position monster. Yeah, just not worth it. I mean, a better boss monster is their next monster, that being the Photon Alexandra Queen. Requires 2 level 4 Butterspy monsters, and you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card to return all monsters on the field to the hand, then inflict 300 damage to each player for each card returned to their hand. Keep in mind, this also returns this card to the hand, meaning you probably have to work around several get-arounds in order to keep this on the field to not be affected by its own effect. So basically to make it into a meta on the Time Lord kind of card. But for what it does, it's actually a really good effect, since it's a non-targeting removal, which is really good and appreciated nowadays. And yeah, basically you want to actually make this thing unaffected by something, if you want, unaffected by its own effects, if you want to keep the flow going. So yeah, it's actually a good card even if you don't meet those conditions. And their last card is their last monster that is a dark monster, that being the Night PAPILLOPERATIve. Another rank 4, requires 3 level 4 monsters this time. And once per turn you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card. This card gains 300 attack for each Xyz material attached to a monster on the field. I am actually trying to grasp if it involves all Xyz monsters on the field or just this card. If it is all monsters, then depending on your opponent or, well, your board, it actually could get to some quite decent attack values, but that's all there is to it. It's a big beater, nothing else. I mean, it's worth running at least 1 or 2 a copy of these, but generally Alexandra Queen is a way better boss monster. Next up is their final card, that being the trap card, Butterspy Protection. Target 1 face-up attack position monster on the field, change it to face-up defense position. Also, any damage you take for the rest of this turn is halved. I mean, you would most likely want to stop your opponent's onslaught and switch their monster to defense position, and if your opponent has another monster on the field, which you most certainly would have, he would basically want to scratch you at least with all the halved battle damage. But anyway, that's it for Butterspy. Now it's time for the grades. Being level 4 warrior spam Xyz spammers, we actually want to give it a 2 out of 3 because they have access to, well, a lot of things, such as Goblinberg, Kage to Kage, Tin Goldfish. Basically any rank 4 engine you can think of that utilizes warriors as well. They have access to Rhoda as well, so yeah. Consistency gets a 2 out of 3 here. Power gets a 2 out of 3 because the potential actually scrap that. It's a 1 out of 3 because its power potential usually depends on Night PAPILLOPERATIve being bloated with a lot of Xyz materials, and that's about all there is to it. Since they're level 4s, comeback ability also gets a 2 out of 3 because level 4s have outs to a lot of things and they can really be good at producing set outs. And yeah, it can be pretty good. Now protection gets an absolute 1 out of 3 because it's completely non-existent here besides Butterspy Protection, which is completely irrelevant most of the times. And versatility, I mean, they're rank 4 spammers, so that's one of the strongest 3 out of 3s I have ever given to an archetype. So that was fun. Butterspies are pretty cool little warrior spammer deck you can have some fun with. And yeah, you can pretty much make really fun decks with this archetype. And yeah, that's pretty much everything for this video. Look forward to the next archetype analysis. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. And as usual, I'll upload the next part whenever I can. See you all. Have a good day and peace.